Hello, Pastor Tim here, bringing you today's Kingdom Key. We're going to be reading out of Matthew chapter 18, and this is sort of a follow-up to yesterday because this follows the argument of the disciples arguing over who was greatest. And Jesus reminding them, if you want to be the greatest, then look to become the least. Look to become the servant. A lot of the quarrels and arguments and things that we have today, especially in the church, is because of people wanting to be in control, people wanting to have power. And instead of seeking power, how about we look to use the influence that God has given us in order to help other people? I believe that's one of the greatest causes of unforgiveness, which is our topic today. We're going to be reading out of Matthew chapter 18, starting with verse 15, and then we're going to skip down a few verses to verse 21. This says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him. If he listens to you, you've gained your brother. But it says, if he does not listen, take 2 others along with you, that every charge may be established by the witness of 2 or 3. Now, Jesus is talking about this because, I may go to my brother and point out his fault, and he doesn't receive it. And that's the end, right? He's wrong, I'm right. But see, here's the problem. Sometimes we're the ones in the wrong. And sometimes we need to bring in a couple of witnesses to kind of overview the situation and look at it beyond our own biases toward ourselves. And Jesus says, if he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. If he refuses to listen to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and tax collector. So Jesus is talking about a process of forgiveness here. So basically, if you feel someone's done you wrong and you try to correct it, it doesn't work, take a couple of people with you. If that doesn't work, then maybe those couple of people were biased toward you, so take it to the leadership of the church, the government of the church, and let them decide. So there's not a great chance that you, a couple of witnesses, and a church are wrong about the situation. So if the person is in the wrong and refuses to make it right, then at that point you're off the hook. And you've done everything you can do to forgive. You've done everything you can do to try to reconcile. And sometimes reconciliation is impossible. But a lot of times, the lack of reconciliation is really because we're stubborn and we don't want to forgive, or we don't want to admit we're wrong. Jumping down to verse 21. It says, then Peter came up to him and said, Lord, how often will I forgive my brother against me? Or my brother who sins against me? How many times should I forgive him? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, I did not say to you 7, but 70 times 7. So it's 490 times. It's very unlikely that someone will sin against you 490 times in your life. And Jesus is basically telling Peter, look, just let it go. Just forgive. Jesus said, I did not say to you 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servant. When he began to settle, one was brought who owed him 10,000 talents. Well, that's the equivalent of millions of dollars today. It would be unattainable, unable to pay. Since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment be made. The servant fell on his knees and implored him, saying, have patience with me, and I'll pay you everything. Out of compassion for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him the debt. So, because he cried out for mercy, the compassionate leader let the debt go. But when the servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and that's about a day's wages. And seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, pay what you owe. So this fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, have patience with me, and I will repay you. And he refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. And the rest of this story basically talks about how word got back to the master that he owed millions of dollars to, that he refused to forgive this servant that owed such a small amount, and he was thrown back into prison until he paid the debt. And this is really a testament to the necessity of forgiveness, because we owe such a great debt to God, we can't repay it. So what's a small thing that a person does to us at the end of the day? It's better just to let it go. It's better to pursue reconciliation. Bitterness and frustration have no place in the kingdom. And when we walk in bitterness and we walk in anger and we walk in unforgiveness, the Bible says God won't forgive us. Just like this parable of the servant. If God forgives us over the huge thing that we did, but we won't forgive our brother over the small thing that they did, is it worth your eternity? That's today's Kingdom Key. God bless you. Keep calm. In Jesus' name.